Health and fitness requires more than just the physical work. It starts with the work you put in to grow your mind. Welcome to the Mind Gains podcast, where we discuss what it takes mentally to see results physically. I'm your host, Jess. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Mind Gains podcast. I am so ready for today. I am ready for this episode because the day this comes out is actually on my 27th birthday. And I love my birthday. I know that's probably really common, but I do still get very excited for this day. And not because I even do anything crazy. I usually just go out to dinner, but I don't know. I think it's just the week as well because after today, we obviously get another fun couple of days. So it's always just like my birthday, Christmas Eve, Christmas, bam, 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 all back to back. So it really is just a few fun days full of family and festivities, and I love it. So if you are listening to this on Monday, December 23rd, the day it comes out, thank you for being here and celebrating the day with me. And to really celebrate today, I thought it might be fun to do an episode on 27 lessons that I have learned within the last 27 years since I have been on this earth. Some of these are more health and fitness related, but others are definitely more of those bigger life lessons I've gotten the opportunity to learn as well. And truthfully, when I thought of this idea, I thought I was going to have kind of a tough time coming up with 27 lessons that I've learned. But the truth is that I've actually had to narrow this list down quite a bit. Turns out I've learned a lot so far, and I know I'm still very young and I have a lot more learning to do, and I am excited about that. But I'm going to go over my final draft of this list of 27 lessons. I'm sure some of these things are things that you've probably learned for yourself, and maybe some of them you haven't really thought about. I am just here to share my knowledge, my personal experience, my input on some of the biggest lessons that I have been faced with so far. And I would say that most of these I've learned pretty recently, probably within the last 3-ish years, actually. I feel like my experience so far has been trying to avoid learning a lot of these things and avoid growing really in any aspect for the longest time. And then it was just like, boom, all of a sudden, I had a lot of opportunities to learn and grow within these past few years. But I'm loving it so far. I hope you find this episode helpful, and maybe you can also learn some lessons without having to actually be thrown into a situation where you're forced to learn them the hard way. So, welcome to 27 Lessons. Lesson number 1 is that grateful is one of the best things you can be. I put this one first because I have to say, I do think it's probably the most important thing that I have learned. So, this is number 1 for a reason. The rest of them aren't really in any certain order, but this one comes first. I have learned that being grateful in every situation, even when you feel like you have nothing to be grateful for, is one of the best qualities to have because it is a choice. Being grateful, being positive and appreciative and thankful for all you have is 100% a choice that you make every day. And I think it's so important to appreciate every day and every moment if you can, because life moves fast. And one day you're probably going to look back to your current situation and think that you should have appreciated it more. And I am terrified of feeling that way. I don't want to waste my time here being ungrateful and unappreciative and negative and just unhappy because life is way too short to do that. And like I said, it doesn't even matter whether you're in the highs or the lows of life. You can still be grateful. Maybe sometimes it's easier to be, but that doesn't matter. Because during the highs, I want to be so consciously grateful for where I am because I think a lot of times it's easy to take things for granted. Maybe you were really grateful when you got that job offer. Maybe it was your dream job and you wanted that position so bad for so long. But after 6 months of being there, you don't feel so grateful anymore because it's not something new and exciting. Like the newness has worn off. But how long did you dream of being there? Like you are now in a position that you would have killed for 6 months ago, and you don't really seem to care anymore. Don't take things for granted. And during the lows, being grateful actually usually helps you get out of those lows a lot quicker. And even if it doesn't, being negative and unthankful isn't doing anything to help. It's just adding to the negativity. So, being grateful for the life and everything that I have, regardless of the situation, has been a big one for me. Lesson number two, if it comes with ease, it's probably not worth it. If it's not easy, it's pretty much always worth it. Nothing worth having comes easy. And that can be a really hard thing to face because we all want what we want and we don't want to have to work hard for it. But that's not how life works at all. This applies to really anything, whether that's changing your body composition, starting a business, making a career change. None of those things are easy to do. But that's a really good sign that it's probably going to be worth it to do it anyways, regardless of what it takes or how long it takes to get there. Lesson three, the best way to grow is to get uncomfortable. Uncomfortable situations are your best teacher. They really show you what you're capable of and what areas you're lacking in. And I think that's great because it shows you the places and the ways that you can grow and get even better and take a step forward. If you're never actively trying to get out of your comfort zone, you will always stay exactly where you are. And maybe you're okay with that. Maybe you're totally fine and happy where you are right now. And I love that for you. But it's important to ask yourself if you're happy with where you're at because you're genuinely happy and love what your life looks like right now, or if you're happy because you're scared to take a step outside of your little circle of comfort. Are you genuinely happy or are you settling? And if you're actually very happy, then that's great. This is exactly where we all want to be, I'm sure. But make sure you're able to differentiate between the two and not just convince yourself that you are content enough because it would be too hard or too scary or too time consuming to get a little uncomfortable in order to take the action steps necessary to align your life with where you would genuinely love to be. And I feel like this leads me nicely to lesson four. Failure isn't always a bad thing. I think a lot of times, part of the reason we're scared to take a risk or a step outside of what we know is due to the fear of failure. But failure is a necessary part of life, and I think we need to stop viewing it in such a negative way because the failures are what help redirect us to end up right where we need to be. Failure is inevitable, and it does not define you or your capabilities. And this was a hard one for me to learn because the way I approach pretty much everything was I'm either going to do it perfectly or I'm just not going to do it at all. And I am here to say that that is 100% the incorrect approach. Perfect isn't possible. And as an Enneagram 1, I am a perfectionist through and through. I need everything to be exactly right. And if it's not, if it's just even a little bit teeny tiny not perfect, it's not good enough for me. And I've had to learn to really break out of that kind of thinking. And it's something I'm still in the process of learning because that is my natural tendency, as I'm sure it is for a lot of us. But that mindset is very limiting and it will hold you back. Don't let it. Perfect doesn't exist, and failure isn't always a bad thing. Lesson number five is going to be to treat others the way that you want to be treated. So simple. We've all been hearing this since we were like 4 years old, but it's so true. The way that you treat others says everything about who you are. And I don't know anyone who's down with being treated like garbage, talked down to, disrespected, or just not treated very nicely. If you don't want it done to you, don't do it to others. Plain and simple. Be kind, respectful, patient. This is a hard one, in my opinion. am not known for my patience. It's a work in progress. We're getting there. You want to be genuine, empathetic, supportive, forgiving, all the things that you want others to be with you. Give people grace. We're all human. We make mistakes. We have slip ups. We don't do everything right. Just be a kind person and treat others the way that you would like them to treat you. It costs you nothing to do this. Next lesson is lesson number 6. The people that are ahead of me, whether that's at work, in health and fitness, or really any other area, are not successful because it's been easier for them, or that they've had it handed to them, or because of some innate ability. It's because they kept showing up every single day and they've been doing it longer. And if they can do it, so can I. I talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but there really isn't much of a difference between those who have been able to attain success, whatever you define as success, and you. Yes, we all have different life circumstances and sometimes different traits and qualities and all of that, but that is so minuscule when you really get down to it. And even if they have it a little bit easier than you do, who cares? Don't shy away from hard work. If it's a little teeny bit more challenging for you to get to that same level, that's great. Because in the end, it will be even that much more rewarding and worth it. Going back to lesson 2, the harder something is to attain, usually the more worth it is. So maybe there's like a 1% difference between you and the person that you view as having attained success in whatever capacity that means. But who cares about 1%? Really, there is no difference. They have just been showing up longer than I have. Awesome. Let's get down to work so that I can be where they are one day, or higher. If they can do it, so can you. Lesson 7, you cannot please everyone. I know a lot of us are people pleasers, but it is impossible to make everyone happy. And at the end of the day, if you're doing all of these things to make everyone else happy, but you're neglecting yourself, that's not okay. I know we need to be self sacrificing at times and give to others, and I 100% agree with that. But if you're always giving to everyone else and doing what's going to make them happy at your own expense, that's not giving to others. That's running yourself into the ground for the sake of everyone else, and we are not called to do that. If you are a people pleaser, like I am, when you feel that way, start asking yourself, am I pleased? You're a people. You need to be happy and take care of yourself too. Whether that's prioritizing your gym sessions and meal prep time because you need to take care of your health, or that's saying no to plans because you've been running on E all week and you just need some time to regulate before another crazy week, you have to take care of yourself too. And if it's coming down to people pleasing because you don't want others to think or talk badly about you, let people make their own assumptions and come to their own conclusions. If they've never actually said anything to you about your choices and your decisions, you're now creating this reality in your head where people are going to be upset with you for making yourself and, maybe your health a priority. And maybe it's true. But again, if they've never actually said anything or made comments about it to make you believe that, it might not be true at all. So don't put that on other people that, well, they're going to be upset with me if I say no to this, because that it might not even be true. And if it does upset them, they can have a conversation with you. But don't make assumptions. And this leads us right on into lesson 8. It's okay to set boundaries with family, with friends, with your boss, with yourself. It's okay to make a definitive line and say, this is what I'm okay with, and this is what I'm not okay with. And if you don't set boundaries and you let everyone cross those lines, you're not going to trust yourself. How can you? If you create a boundary that you're not going to see so and so family member anymore because every time you do, they treat you horribly, they talk down to you, they don't respect you at all. You've tried talking to them numerous times to get this resolved because you want to have a healthy relationship with them, but they don't want to hear it and they don't care and they continue treating you badly. You are allowed to set that boundary that I'm just not going to be around them anymore. You do not have to subject yourself to that situation and being treated poorly. And if you set that boundary, that standard, but then they come into town and they're wanting to get together and you give in and make plans to see them anyways because it's easier to just do that than stand firm in what your boundary is, you're not going to be able to trust yourself to give you what you need. In this case, not allowing yourself to be subjected to being treated like dirt. Because you can make plans with them this time around with the intention of, this is the last time, I'm not doing it again when they come into town next time. But are you going to stick to that? You've already shown that you've given in and allowed them to cross that boundary. How are you going to trust yourself to be able to stick to that next time? And it's okay to set boundaries even with yourself. If you are in the middle of your fat loss journey and you're at a Christmas party and they're serving all sorts of cookies and sweets and desserts, and you're feeling pretty strong going into that situation and pretty confident in your ability to stay on plan, but then you feel like if you just eat one cookie right now, the floodgates are going to open and you are not going to be able to stop yourself from having the entire tray, it is okay to set that boundary with yourself that you're not going to have any this time around. It's not restrictive. It's saying, I know what balance looks like for me in this current situation. And maybe sometimes that balance is being able to include a cookie or two. And maybe sometimes it's saying, I'm not going to even have one because I know I won't stop right now. You are allowed to set boundaries. Lesson number 9 is that you are always an example to others, whether you realize it or not. Someone is always watching you. Could be friends, family, coworkers, spouses, children, neighbors, strangers. It could be anyone. You are always being watched to see how you will handle situations, what your response will be, how you're taking action every day. If your actions align with your words, what your priorities are, everything. And that might sound a little scary, like, oh my gosh, I have to be on all the time. And that's not true. People are looking for your genuine self, but I actually view this as a really positive thing because this means that there's always someone that you can help. And who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want to be a person who gives to others and helps them and educates and motivates and inspires them? I think that's awesome. So keep in mind that you are always an example to others around you. Lesson number 10, if you want different, you have to act different. Nothing changes if nothing changes. And I think this took a long time for me to learn because I kept trying to find the bare minimum that I could do to see significant changes and phenomenal results. But it comes down to the fact that if you do what you've always done, you'll be where you've always been. And if you're not good with that, if you want more for yourself and you want to make real change in your life, things have to start changing. It's not just going to poof happen. If you want different, you have to act different. And this comes down to what you're doing on a daily basis, what your daily actions look like. If you want to lose 20 pounds, but you do nothing to change your dietary habits or movement, nothing changes. If you want to get into a different line of work, but you don't get the schooling or the education or requirements you need to do that job, and if you don't apply and start interviewing for that job, nothing changes. It's all in the actions that you do or do not take every day. Lesson number 11 is hands down one of my favorites listed. And here it is. Excuses are lame. That's it. Plain and simple. Excuses are really lame. We all have them. We all have a million reasons handy and ready to go at any point to be able to throw out and point to as the reason why we couldn't do what we said we were going to or wanted to do. But in reality, they all suck. Everyone has them and none of them are valid. Yes, there are legitimate reasons as to why things don't get done sometimes. That's not what I'm talking about. You need to get really critical on what a legitimate reason is and what an excuse is. Because 9 times out of 10, when we say we didn't get our stuff done because of X, Y, and Z, it's an excuse. And we use excuses because it's easier to put the blame on everything else rather than on ourselves and just accept the fact that we didn't show up and we didn't do what we know needs to get done. And that's a hard thing to admit. But the longer you hold on to those excuses, the longer you're going to stay stuck right where you are. It's usually not the situation, it's us. And I am not exempt from this. So let's start taking responsibility and make a change so that we can take steps forward and be successful. Next lesson is number 12, and that is going to be that you have to acknowledge your feelings. Ignoring them is detrimental. And this is one that I am continuing to learn in all different aspects of life because it's showing up in many different areas for me. I am not a feeling type person. I am a logical type person. Not saying that you feelers out there aren't logical, but you know what I mean. I think with my head and not my heart most of the time. But I have continued to learn time and time again that the more I push my feelings back and try to just bulldoze past them and keep pushing forward, the more I'm actually setting myself back. And let me tell you, when you are not a feeling type person, learning your emotions and learning to actively acknowledge them is not easy to do at all. It is painstaking work, but it is so important. And honestly, I used to think it was weak. Just being completely transparent here. I used to think it was weak to show emotion and to talk to others about how I'm feeling and to acknowledge my feelings. Like it sounds so woo woo to me. But feelings and emotions were gifted to us, and learning to acknowledge and face them and explain them to others instead of just ignoring them is so, so important. Not only to better your relationship with those around you, but just for yourself as well. Because the emotions we're having are like a window into where our mindset is at and what our beliefs are. But with that being said, we also don't want to allow them to dictate all of our choices. We do need to be able to find a balance of understanding what our emotions are, but not allowing them to be the deciding factor on whether we show up that day or not in whatever we need to do. And I'm specifically thinking health and fitness here because there are going to be times where you're going to feel really discouraged about this journey. And maybe you feel like you're seeing a lack of progress, and that is tough. But that doesn't mean that you decide to lay in bed today instead of taking action on the things you know you need to. Behaviors, thoughts, and feelings are all different. You can't actively change the feelings that you're experiencing, but you can change your thoughts and your behaviors or your actions and choose thoughts and behaviors that support your goals. And your feelings oftentimes follow suit with what your thoughts and your beliefs are around a certain subject. So, if you believe that you are not going to see the fat loss that you want, and you're telling yourself that you're not sure you can do it because you don't know if you have it in you to make the sacrifices needed to get there, you are choosing that mindset. And this mindset is not supportive of a feeling of confidence in your abilities and hope for success. It's going to lead to feelings of negativity and discouragement and hesitation and disappointment and feeling defeated. But if you change your mindset and your thoughts to ones of, I am capable, I know I can do this, I am able to build up discipline and a strong mindset, I know I can and I will be successful. These are the thoughts that lead to feelings of self efficacy and hope and excitement. If you haven't learned by now, your mindset determines everything. And really, this could have and probably should have been one of my lessons that I've learned. But here you go. Here's a bonus lesson. Your mindset determines everything, including even your feelings a lot of the time. So, all of that to say that acknowledging our feelings is important because they do show where our beliefs really lie and what our mindset is. But we don't allow those temporary feelings to be the deciding factor on what actions we do and do not take. All right, lesson 13. Live like no one else so that later you can live like no one else. And this was taken right from Dave Ramsey. If you don't know who that is, look him up. I learned to budget my money from that guy and really my parents. And this is his saying: live like no one else so that later you can live like no one else. And he's speaking specifically to finances here. And I know that is not what this show is about, nor is it my personal interest. However, this sentiment when it comes to finances and just choices you're making in life is so good. Essentially, this is just saying to make the necessary sacrifices now that no one else is willing to make so that you can reap the rewards later down the line. If you were to apply this to your finances, which I highly recommend that you do, this would look like not buying things that you can't afford, not taking out loans for things you can't afford, not going into debt for things you can't afford, keeping and maintaining a monthly budget, making the necessary sacrifices and foregoing the extra expenses in order to get out of debt if you're currently in it, cutting up your credit cards because you are no longer buying things that you cannot afford. I mean, who lives like this? Not a lot of people, because most of us just buy whatever we want, even if we really probably shouldn't because we really can't afford it. But if you live like no one else right now by doing all of these things and making good financial decisions and sticking to your budget every month, later down the line, you're going to live like no one else and enjoy all the things because you'll actually be able to be extremely successful financially because of the sacrifices you made early on. I do recommend that you adopt this idea when it comes to your finances, but it can be applied in health and fitness as well. Living like no one else right now when it comes to health and fitness looks like tracking your food, going to the gym, prioritizing your sleep and your stress levels and your rest, drinking your water, being active outside of the gym, setting boundaries, caring about your mental health and your mindset. Not a lot of people live like this, right? Take a good look around. How many people do you see in your life doing these things on a daily basis? But if you do, if you live like no one else, so that later you can live like no one else, that later looks like being fit and in shape, being mentally tough and disciplined, being genuinely happy and confident in yourself, having adequate energy every day, being healthy, not having to be on medication and be in doctor's offices every few months, being able to move well and be independent in your later years, being able to play with your grandchildren. Live like no one else so that later you can live like no one else. Lesson number 14: to-do lists are great, but sometimes you need to go off plan and slow down. I live my life by a to-do list. And is it extremely helpful for making sure I get everything done that I need to get done? Absolutely. But if I'm not careful, I will let that list completely take over my entire life. And there have been so many times that I have accomplished everything that I set out to do, but then I'm like, where did this day go? What did I do today that I actually genuinely enjoyed? And I'm just kind of left feeling depressed because I feel as if I'm not paying attention to my daily life. And it is great to be taking those steps every day to, get where you want to be and reach all of your goals and be in the position that you want to be in. But we also need to enjoy the process of it and not just always be looking for, future happiness down the line. Like, I want to have those moments every day as well. And I am so thankful to be busy, whether it's from work or housework or plans with other people. And I am so thankful for my to do list because it helps me stay productive. And I think that's very important, like I was saying. And being organized and productive is a great quality to have and to adopt. But at the same time, I will let that rule over my life and over my day a lot of the time. So I've had to learn a balance of being very productive and taking care of what needs to get taken care of, but then also being okay with being flexible and saying, you know what? Maybe this task doesn't need to get checked off today. Maybe it can wait for tomorrow. And if you are someone who goes almost too far the opposite direction, you are never checking anything off your list and you're always just moving everything to the next day and procrastinating, maybe take this lesson but reverse it for you. What I'm trying to say is that productivity is great. That's how we take steps forward. But there's more to your daily life than just what's on your to do list. So I'm still in the process of trying to find the right balance between those two things. But now I try to make time every single day for something that I genuinely really want to do. Yes, I love my time at the gym now in the mornings, but that is also something that I just know needs to get done. Like, that's a non negotiable. I'm talking things that are completely outside of that, things that maybe really aren't that productive, but I really want to make time for because I enjoy them. This looks different every day because if it's a busier day and I really don't have the time to be completely unproductive, then maybe this looks like taking a walk outside if the weather is nice instead of getting my steps on the walking pad so that I can be multitasking and working on other things at the same time. If I have some more time in my day and I can carve out 30 to 60 minutes at some point to read a book, great. If I have more time than that because it's a slower day, at the end of my night, I might choose to sit on the couch and watch a movie. But making that time every day for something that I really want to do, instead of just constantly choosing the to do list over the small things that bring me happiness every day, has been a big help. Next lesson, lesson number 15, is that you don't really know what's going on in other people's lives. You only know what they allow you to know. This goes for people you actually personally know and for people that you see on social media. So, whether you're looking at people that you follow on Instagram and thinking that they have the perfect life and the perfect house and the perfect family and they just have it all figured out, no, they don't. I promise they do not. None of us do. Social media is a highlight reel. And while some people are showing the not so glamorous parts of their lives, most do not. Most people do not want to show what their real life looks like, what their real day to day actually looks like on social media. They don't want you to see what their house actually looks like on a daily basis. They don't want you to see what their marriage looks like behind closed doors. Most of the time, what's shown on social media are the highlights. So don't compare yourself to others you see on there and think that they have it all together because in reality, you don't really know. And when it comes to people that you personally know, maybe you see more of their real life, but again, you only know what they allow you to know. You don't know what others are dealing with or what all they have going on unless they decide to share it all with you. So, the lessons I got from this was to one, not compare myself to others, and two, not to always be judging other people based off their decisions. Because truthfully, maybe I don't know everything. I probably don't know everything. Maybe I think that a decision someone I know is making is not a great one. Or maybe I don't understand why they're doing something. But I also don't know what's going on in their life that may be playing into that decision. I only know what they allow me to know. Lesson 16, it is a privilege to be able to do everything we do on a daily basis. Kind of going back to just learning to be grateful for everything. I guess these two kind of go hand in hand, but genuinely, it really is a privilege. And this is something you really have to think about because not very many people's initial thought or initial reaction when they start going to the gym is, I am so thankful to be here. It is a privilege to be here. Most people are like, oh, I have to go to the gym. I have to lose this weight. Not a lot of people are seeing it as a privilege, but it is because you don't have to do anything. You don't have to start working out. You don't have to start eating more protein because my coach says I have to start eating more protein. There is nothing that you have to do. No one is forcing your hand here. You get to do all of those things. It is a privilege to have the ability to better your health. There are some people in the hospital right now fighting for their life, hanging on by a thread that I am sure would give anything for a second chance to be able to improve their health and stick around longer. I know that that sounds super morbid and kind of scary, but it's true. There are some people who physically do not have the ability to be able to get up and walk around to get their steps in, that I'm sure would kill for things to be different for them. There are some people who don't have access to facilities or to decent, healthy food that would probably give their right arm to be able to be in your position. And you're going to complain about going to the gym and tracking your food and getting to take care of yourself and improve your health. I know we don't always feel like doing these things. No one does. I am right there with you. But changing your mindset and shifting your perspective and your attitude from one of ungratefulness to one of appreciation for all the things that you get to do is one of the best things you can implement. Lesson number 17 is to develop a growth mindset. Developing a growth mindset enables you to better persevere through challenges and develops resilience and improves your confidence. And I don't think any of us are like, nah, I don't want to be confident. I don't want to be resilient and be able to bounce back quickly and not let challenges and difficulties keep me down. I think we all want that. But you have to be okay with growth and with challenges and setbacks and hard work and with taking responsibility. And if you're not, if you have a fixed mindset and you just believe that your abilities are fixed and unchangeable, there's nothing you can do, then once again, you're going to stay stuck right where you are. So take a good look around, get nice and comfy, because if you're never taking chances or accepting feedback from others or trying anything new because you want to avoid failure, you're not taking steps forward. You want to get to a point where you are confident in your abilities and not afraid to step outside of your comfort zone. Or even if you are, you're willing to do it anyways, knowing that you might not succeed this time. You might fail. But again, that's okay because that failure is going to put you on the correct path if you don't allow it to discourage you and keep you from taking any more steps forward. And what you might have initially viewed as you failing turned out to be one of the best things you ever did because it led you exactly where you needed to be. And once you develop that thought process, there is literally no way to lose because you either win and it's great or you fail and something even better is coming. I feel like I'm merging like three different lessons right now, and I kind of am, but it just goes to show that all of these coincide together. Developing a growth mindset is one of the best things that you can do. It allows you to embrace challenges, persist in the face of setbacks, and become confident in your abilities, even if you quote unquote fail, because failure isn't always a bad thing. Next lesson, number 18, is a much more lighthearted one. It's that Reese's peanut butter cups are actually amazing. One of the best candies out there, hands down. This one took me about 26 years to learn because up until a little over a year ago, I hated them. Like I could not stand them. And then all of a sudden, one day, the scales fell from my eyes. I grew up and I realized, holy crap, these are amazing. And if you disagree, I hate to tell you, but you're wrong. You're wrong. That's it. So hopefully you'll come around too. We'll pray for you. But seriously, they're the best. All right, back to business. Lesson number 19. Good things take time. Great things take even longer. I mentioned this earlier, but patience is not something that I pride myself on. I, like most people, want what I want and I want it now. I don't want to wait for it because that's not fun. But I have come to learn over the course of the last few years that good things take time. They take a lot of time. And great things, they take even longer. So I can't be abandoning ship every time things feel like they're slow. Every time it feels like progress isn't happening, because it is. It's just not happening at the lightning speed that I want it to. And I've had to learn in multiple aspects of my life, not just health and fitness, to trust the process and stop questioning everything that I'm doing at every step along the way. If you want great things, you need to be willing to wait on it for much longer than you'd like to, while continuing to put the work towards it every day. And lesson 20 is kind of along the same lines, but it's that shortcuts get you nowhere except right back to square one. Because we don't like to wait for things and be patient and trust that the hard work is working, we look for shortcuts. We think that the slow, steady, sustainable approach to weight loss takes way too long and requires way too much patience. So we drastically reduce our calories down to an unhealthy number to lose the weight quickly. Shortcut. We think that saving up our money to buy that car we want is going to take way too long. So we take out a loan and go into debt for it. Shortcut. I have learned from personal experience that shortcuts do not work. And not only do they not put you ahead at all, but they set you back even farther from where you started off. Because you drastically cut your calories and saw quick weight loss, first off, it probably wasn't even fat loss. You lost muscle mass. I hate to tell you, but I'm not even going to get into that. You're probably not going to be able to keep up with those protocols. And then you gain the weight right back, plus more typically. Whereas if you would have just taken the slow and steady approach and maintained a healthy, moderate calorie deficit over time, you would see results that you could actually keep. So don't take shortcuts. It's never worth it. Go about whatever it is the right way and see how much better off you are for it. Lesson 21: the time is flying by anyways. Might as well take action. This is something I keep going back to anytime motivation dips way down, because it's true. The time is flying by, regardless of whether I make progress towards my goals today or not. Time is not going to wait for me. So I can either use that time to take steps towards my goals every day, or I can waste the time away and be in the same exact position a month from now, a year from now, maybe even 5, 10, 20 years from now. We all talk about how quick time goes by. How quick did this month go? How are we already at Christmas? How is it already almost 2025? And if you've sat back doing nothing to progress yourself towards whatever goals you have in your life, are you better off for it now? If you wanted to lose 10 pounds when we first started the year and you've done zero to achieve that because you thought it would take too long and it would be too much work, and you're going into 2025 with the same exact goal, why? Because you could have lost those 10 pounds by maybe mid March, 9 months ago, but instead you did nothing and now you're in the same spot that you were. Or maybe you're even in a worse spot and you gained 10 pounds this year, and now your goal is to lose 20 pounds going into the new year. So, yeah, in the moment, does it feel like it's going to take a long time to lose 10 pounds because that might take a few months? Yes, but the time is going by anyways. Those few months are pressing on with or without you. So you might as well take the daily actions during those few months that are going to allow you to achieve your goal instead of letting the time continue to get away from you. Lesson number 22: life is too short to not do the work that fulfills you. Coming off from a job pretty recently that was great, it was a very good job to me, but wasn't fulfilling. I have learned that life is too dang short to stay in that position and miss out on something better. And I know this is hard because sometimes we feel stuck in a certain position because we don't have experience doing anything else, or we don't have the schooling needed, or we can't take a pay cut to start over somewhere else. But if you are someone who is currently in a job that does not bring you genuine happiness and fulfillment, I highly urge you to find out what you can be doing to change your circumstance. What steps do you need to take? What schooling or education do you need to get? Where do you need to invest maybe some extra time and money in order to make that change? Because life is way too short to be spending 40 plus hours a week being unhappy. Getting that education to get into a different role, leaving your job for uncertainty, and completely changing your career path are all very, very scary things to do. I have done all of them. But if there's no risk, there's no reward. So, this is not to say that it's easy to do this and we are all currently in a position to do this, or that we should all just be jumping ship because we're not 100% happy at our jobs. But if you have a passion for something other than what you're currently doing, I highly recommend that you start making a plan to see how you can get from where you currently are to where you want to be and what steps need to be taken to get there. My favorite number is 23, probably because my birthday is on the 23rd. I don't know. It just is. So I made lesson 23 one of my favorites. You have to push yourself because no one is going to do it for you. No one is going to come in and try to convince you to go after what you really want. No one is going to constantly be pushing you to become a better version of yourself. You have to be that person for you. And if you're applying this to health and fitness, my mind always goes to getting up early for the gym. The reason this can be so hard is because we typically have zero commitment to this. No one is relying on you to get to the gym. This isn't like a team sport where you have to show up to practice and to your games because if you don't, you're affecting other people. This is hard because no one cares if you don't go. No one cares if you decide to turn your alarm off, roll over, go back to bed, and skip the gym. You have to care. You have to care enough and decide to be the one to pull yourself up out of bed and get to the gym when it's the last thing you feel like doing. Push yourself because no one is going to do it for you. Lesson 24, no is an answer. This is a hard one for me. This is one that I'm still working on as well, but I've gotten a lot better with. No, period, is a full sentence. And I think where I really struggle with this is learning that this isn't rude, because I think my initial reaction to this idea is that it sounds rude to just be like, no, but that's not how we want to say it. This just means that we don't have to be constantly trying to explain ourselves to everyone else. I know most of us feel like if we are saying no to something, it has to be followed up with an explanation as to why we're saying no. When in reality, all that needs to be said is no, now's not a good time for me. Or no, it's not going to work out this time. Or no, I'm sorry I can't make it today. We'll plan something else soon. I've learned that I don't owe it to anyone to be like, well, no, I can't do it today because I have this going on and I really need to catch up on some housework. And this has just been a very taxing week for me and I just need to take the day. And for me personally, this really stems from things that are ongoing, even now in my personal life, that have been for quite some time now. And I always felt like I had to be making excuses for why I couldn't or wasn't going to be somewhere, do something, see someone, because the truth was that I'm dealing with something that I have to prioritize in my very private personal life that I am not ready to share with very many people. Don't know if I ever will be. And that's the real reason why I'm saying no. But I can't say that's the reason why because then people are going to question what's going on, and I'm not wanting to tell them. So I have just learned that no is a full answer. I don't need to make excuses. That is a good enough answer, and others need to respect that. And even when this comes to other things, people are not always going to understand you or understand your decisions or why you're doing what you're doing, and that's okay. You probably have different values and different priorities. And this goes in reverse. You're not always going to understand others in their decisions, but they're entitled to them just as much as you are entitled to yours. So give them the same level of respect to their choices as you would like for yours. We are getting down to the last few here. Hang in there, guys. Lesson number 25 is that you have to listen to your body. I used to think that I could just push through and get my workouts done, even if it was begging me for a rest day. I used to think that I could just keep stuffing myself full of food, even though it was screaming at me to stop because I had already had enough. I used to think I could just continue hacking away at my to do list for the day, Even though my cortisol levels were through the roof and my body was asking me to take a 10-minute break to downregulate before continuing to approach my day in a much calmer, more relaxed state. I used to give zero mind to what my body was saying. It wasn't even ever a thought. Like, my body is asking for things. My mind and my body might be in two different places. I had no idea how any of that worked. But through not only health and fitness, but life circumstances as well, I have very much learned that I was not caring at all or even aware of my body and its needs. I feel like I just disassociated from it because here's what needs to get done and it's getting done no matter what. And that is a really great way to run yourself into the ground and get burnt out or get injured in the gym or live with spiked cortisol. Your body is asking you for many different things on a daily basis. Listen to it and find out what it needs in the moment to be best supported. Lesson 26: quality repetition and consistency is key. I want you to think about planting a tree. If you plant a tree today, you dig up the dirt, put the tree in, fill the hole back up, and water it. Nothing is going to happen today. Tomorrow, you get up and you water the tree. Nothing is going to happen tomorrow either. You get up the next day, water the tree again. Still nothing. You water that tree every single day, and 2, 3 weeks later, still nothing. Maybe you see a tiny bit of growth, but that tree definitely isn't fully grown just a few weeks later. It's going to take a long time to get to that point. And then after 3 weeks, you're like, ugh, it's been 3 weeks. I have been watering this dang tree every single day, and it's not even fully grown yet. It's barely done anything. This isn't working. It's not that it's not working. It's that you haven't been doing it long enough and given it the appropriate amount of time to turn into a fully grown tree. This applies everywhere. And it's so funny once you understand this because then you see all the people that are like, well, I've been going to the gym and tracking my food for 3 weeks and I don't look the way that I want to. I barely even seen any changes. And it's just so crystal clear to you at this point because you understand this concept when we apply it to the tree, but for some reason, we have a hard time making that connection in other areas. And the truth is that that tree did make progress during those first 3 weeks. It's just that great things take a lot of time. And our expectation for what progress looks like is so unrealistic. And because we're looking for a certain level of progress and we have this expectation, anything less than that is no progress at all in our minds. So if you get fed up after 3 weeks and you stop watering the tree, then yeah, the tree is going to die and now you have nothing. You are right back to square one. But if you would have just kept watering the tree, you would get the results you're looking for in due time when you give the work enough time to work. So repetition and consistency is key. And not only that, but quality repetition is key. Because you could be watering that tree for weeks, but if you watering it is just splashing a drop of water on it, that's not it either. If you give that tree the quality water that it needs every day and keep doing that over and over and over and over again, it will grow up one day to a giant, beautiful tree. Quality repetition and consistency is key. All right, we made it. The last lesson. Lesson number 27: start before you're ready. I think so many of us waste so much time deliberating and trying to find the best course of action before we make any moves. And we don't like to start anything until we're ready for it. But you're probably never going to be ready. And you will sit in indecisiveness forever, never making any moves or any changes. So start when you don't know everything, even if it's messy. Messy action is way more productive than no action at all. And that's how you learn. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be pretty when you're first starting out, but it is going to be productive because even though you don't have it down to a T yet, Or maybe you're even doing it entirely wrong. It does not matter. You doing it wrong is productive because you're learning what not to do and what doesn't work, and that is part of the learning process. One of my favorite quotes: the best time to take action was yesterday. The second best time is right now. Start before you're ready because now is the best time. There you have it, 27 lessons to celebrate my 27th birthday. I hope this was insightful for you in some way, or you learned maybe some things that you didn't know before. Like I said, I learned most of these really within the last few years, and I am still working on fully implementing several of them, but we're getting there. And I recommend that you really take a lot of these to heart and start trying to implement them in your life because most of them will completely change the way that you view everything and the way that you take action and your response to a lot of things. So, definitely recommend trying to learn some of these lessons if you have not already. Now, I've got some celebrating to do. I hope you have a great rest of your Monday and a Merry Christmas, and I will talk to you later.